Well, welcome along to our Workplace Innovation Expert Series. I'm Peter Ely, Head of Modern Workplace at Bytes. And all of these presentations that we're doing have a different subject that we look to open up as a discussion about in each episode with a different guest speaker. This presentation brings one of the most recognised leaders in the EU space for the last 2 decades, and that would be Citrix. So we're delighted to be able to invite along Justin Thorogood. Would you just like to introduce yourself, Justin?
Hi there, Peter. Hi there, everyone. My name's Justin Thorogood. I have been a Citrite for now 9 years. I've seen an awful lot of change across those 9 years. I work in our channel team. I'm responsible for our application delivery and security portfolio across Northern Europe. So my job basically is to ensure that that you guys as partners understand where we're going and what we're doing, and being able to clearly articulate that to customers. So you and I speak rather a lot, Peter.
Indeed we do. Thanks, Justin, and welcome along to the Bytes Workplace Innovation event. If you work in EUC, you know Citrix. Even if you don't use Citrix currently, you know what it does. And for the most part, everyone knows that Citrix have been experts in providing virtual desktops, virtual application access, and Citrix for the last couple of years, they've been instrumental in helping many organizations get through lockdown periods that we've been through. But everyone is now starting to consider what their options are. Is it going to be a virtual desktop route we go down? Is it a managed desktop solution? A question to you to start us off, Justin, is what is it that Citrix have recognized is important in the new modern workplace?
So I think for as long as I've known Citrix, the narrative was always around, we're the future of work. And I think what we saw very quickly during the pandemic was the future of work actually became the present very quickly. What we were seeing from customers was, they were having to address some of those severe challenges, meeting that challenge of distributed work, if you like. There were companies, especially in the public sector, they had, a very defined plan for the next 5 years in terms of how they were going to begin to transition, start looking into the ever expanded usage of cloud services. And it was about where information and content was spread across a multitude of sources. And slowly making those easy to find and integrate, bring insights to act in, on that environment as a whole. And I think only now we're starting to see customers starting to really address, what those challenges are of this new hybrid work era that we find ourselves in, and Citrix is absolutely front and center of that.
Yeah, I mean, it has been front and center of a lot of solutions in the past, but now I think that's the difference. It's now front and center of, a business transformation. And I suppose what would you say is different, really, are you seeing from Citrix side of things to, the perhaps previous proposition where it was prepare for the new modern way of working, which is now we're in that modern way of working? What's the real difference?
Well, I think realistically, I think you could divide it up into 3 very, very distinct areas. First of all, work historically for employees such as us has been a bit messy. How do we access our content? If our content is everywhere, how do we provide that and organise that in a way that everything is found a lot easier? Integrations work across systems. We can access those applications without fear of being compromised, regardless of whether it happens to be on-prem or in the cloud. We obviously want to be able to allow co-workers to collaborate with ease with clients. This bi-directional sharing of workflows. Hopefully trust that IT keep the information secure. That's really important. It shouldn't necessarily be on me. I need an environment that enables me to be secure by design. And again, Citrix, from a virtual apps and desktops perspective, has always been inherently very secure. But then how do we then execute? How do we execute on those workflows? How do we provide adaptive security for the business? And I think, as I said, where Citrix have come from, our legacy, if you like, has been that protection of the individual's being able to access applications and desktops regardless of the device they happen to be using and where they're located. And I think that's so important in this modern era, to be able to provide that access based upon identity, location, device, and potentially supplementing, the way that things have been done before. And I saw, a lot of friends working in other companies. They were sent home with an aging laptop, or told to pop down to the local store, or maybe Currys. Other stores are available. And picking up
not the BBC, don't worry.
picking up a device which, you can imagine the phone call, call the IT department up. Right, I need access to my applications, please. I've gone and bought myself a Chromebook. To which the IT department are like, oh, yeah, we're not sure if that works or not. Let me go and find out. So giving access to applications, I think, is the bit that normally got missed in terms of what we were known for as our legacy. But, so we provided access to those virtual apps, those desktops, and where Citrix is now moving to is almost taking the shackles off somewhat. That 20 years of experience of providing that secure access, providing different types of access, whether it involved multi-factor authentication or integration into some form of app on a phone, so that you could supplement that, that conditional access. So, there are, plenty of providers like Symantec and Okta and others that we've worked with historically. But, why should just the people who are using a workspace or a virtual apps and desktop environment be the only ones that benefit? So, where we're going and what we're doing is starting to address the rest of the business, which I think is definitely a shift change in terms of where we came from and in terms of where we're going.
Which is interesting, because when we speak to customers, a lot of customers are questioning where Citrix has a relevance for them. They have perhaps a managed desktop environment using Microsoft Intune or something else, or perhaps they're looking at AVD to host their virtual desktops. So people are questioning, is Citrix still needed? And I suppose that's the good question to start with. Why is this so relevant now? What are you seeing customers ask about that is making it so relevant for us? And as a solution, what is Citrix doing to address that?
Yeah, I think what was very clear, and it's probably unfair of the industry to do this, but I think VDI kind of got a bit of a bad rap. This virtual infrastructure, regardless of where it's hosted. I think what Microsoft did with AVD was provide a welcome shot in the arm. Virtualized desktops are not going away. We as a business at Citrix are still seeing customers adopt and expand. The desktop is just another application that is served up. But I think where businesses are finding it a challenge, and the ones that are still currently working with us, is because they want the security controls in place in order to be able to roll these environments out very quickly. But also, not everybody is using set devices. They're using Apple MacBooks and they're using Chromebooks, and it's like, well, how do you adapt to be able to provide full access across these multitude of devices, and also be able to sit across multiple cloud environments? And with complexity comes challenge, and this is something that Citrix for many years have just taken in their stride. So as I said, I see VDI isn't going anywhere. I see us continuing to drive that conversation as customers be able to move those environments out of the data center into the cloud, and then decide where they want to host those desktops. But I think that's a tried and tested method. I think it's something that you and I have been speaking about probably for some years now. I'd like to think customers are pretty familiar as to why they would go down one route as opposed to another. But I know we're continuing to see those numbers grow year on year. So I'd say that that's not going anywhere fast.
So, okay, Citrix still have a relevance in the VDI market. What about the non-VDI market? Where is it that you can help? What is it that you can do?
So, well, there's two elements. I mean, the other area that Citrix have been incredibly well known for is our application delivery aspect. So, we've inherently been very, very strong, Gartner leading. solution, top right-hand corner, for many years in terms of application delivery. I think the use cases around there have increased significantly as customers look to provide a level of web application security for for their critical business apps, regardless of where they're located. We've certainly seen an uptick in that. But I think it's around this security element, this hybrid work element, that's presented, I think, the most challenges. Citrix historically will have provided what they used to refer to as a Citrix gateway. I think customers would have bought ADCs in the past to provide that level of authentication into the Citrix environment, and introduce things like multi-factor authentication, keep an eye on the traffic coming in and out, standard ADC stuff. But I think it's had to move on. And where we start taking a look at individuals who are working from home first and foremost, Peter, not necessarily coming into the office. You're trying to attract in new talent. I think that that home working has been something that was asked for pre-pandemic as one of the top 5 interview conversations. But how do you adapt to a rapidly moving workforce, that's coming in from everywhere, and the applications, which of course are becoming rapidly decentralized. We're moving those applications out of the data center. How the hell do we manage all of that? And as customers start to adopt SaaS-based applications, you mentioned about Citrix, not being relevant to some customers. Well, you know what? To some customers, it isn't relevant. They've hung on to Citrix for many years. Maybe it's a legacy application that they've got within their business that they just couldn't retire. And finally, they're able to make that jump. And they knock on your door and say, Peter, we don't need Citrix anymore. The first question that you're then going to ask them is, well, how are you going to provide access to that application? How are you going to guarantee the safety of both your business and the information that sits within that application? But how are you going to provide a level of access that is granular to that application? So give certain privileges to different employees within the business. You need to be able to secure SaaS, be able to work on thick clients, as a lot of customers are now doing, by the way. As they move away from virtual desktops, they're buying laptops. But some customers are left, I think, with quite clunky VPN solutions. All the traffic has to go through the data center and out. Well, why does that need to be the case? And I think as we move on, I think we had the BYO era. I think probably about 5-6 years ago. I think that's come back to revisit us, for the simple reason is that people are choosing to work from home, because not only is it convenient for them, but they actually feel they're more productive. And I think the business has seen that too.
So if it's not virtual apps and desktops, and it's not ADC, what is it that Citrix have got up their sleeve to be able to offer?
So I think it's going to be all around security. Security is going to be the big word for us, but secure access. So I think you'll probably have a few people watching this and going, Citrix trying to be a security vendor? As I said, we've been secure by design for many years. People have trusted Citrix, and I think it's been a get out of jail free card for many, especially if you're looking to kind of like the healthcare sector as an example, who have unfortunately been at the beholden to the types of sophisticated attack, state-sponsored attack that we've seen. Healthcare providers being held to ransom, to get their systems back online. It's impacted the general public. It's like, well, how would we have been able to address and fix that challenge if Citrix hadn't been in place? And I think many healthcare providers would go on record to say, if it wasn't for Citrix, we would have been lost. But for those organisations maybe that only have had a small subsection, it's like, well, if we take the limitation of that you have to be a Citrix workspace or virtual apps and desktops user, but we can apply those security controls to everybody, what we actually become is a secure technology vendor. And that's very, very different, because as a vendor, Citrix has always been at the business thick end. When it comes to talking to customers, we speak very much about outcomes, and outcomes are important. How can we address the needs of the business and protect our users at the same time, and provide a uniform experience when accessing work, business applications? But then what about everybody else? We all still need access to applications, regardless of where they are. So how do we take the controls that we've implemented for the last 2 decades and provide it to everyone else without it being clunky and them having to use a workspace? So what we did was we implemented hundreds of points of presence around the world, and therefore security policies and protections can be provided at the closest point of presence. and we introduce a series of security services in there so that every individual that wants to connect to work, wherever that work application is, whether it's on premise or in the cloud or outsourced somewhere, that those mechanisms are in place to provide that safeguarded experience. And I think that that's absolutely critical. So whether you're using Workspace, whether you've got a thick client device or you're accessing off a mobile device on a browser, that experience should be the same, providing the necessary safeguards for both the employee and for the business. And I think that's an important distinguishment to make.
So that's really interesting, because there isn't a solution really that allows you that kind of fluid access at the moment today. From a user experience point of view, Microsoft will do the management of your desktop, of your device. They can do the per app proxy, and they can kind of implement some way of making it secure on an app basis or a content basis. But what you're saying is use us as the gateway, and then we'll protect it all.
100%.
And that same user experience can be the same.
Because the threat's either coming from the individual or it's coming from the other end. And therefore, if you've got like the filter, the sieve that sits in between it and that's scanning the traffic in both directions, then what it does is it keeps both the business and the employee safe. So I'd hope to think that you're not introducing draconian security measures which slow down the user experience. A poor user experience means the poor help desk is getting a lot of phone calls, let's be honest. But you really want to be supplying, that secure remote access to all applications, regardless of where they are, without those horrible silos. So, we're securing both apps, and data in managed, unmanaged, and BYO environments. So I think we tick an awful lot of boxes here for the business. And I said this isn't typically a conversation that we would have been having before. So I said, old Citrix, we're very much talking to the business end of the customer, the CIO, but this really is on the CISO's agenda. Where typically we haven't spoken before, and historically they would have spoken to the traditional security vendors, that maybe sit very much in that hardware world. We actually, if you were to kind of draw it like a Venn diagram, we now sit in the middle. So we can address both the business concerns of where they want to get to in terms of their strategy to provide, true hybrid work, but also address to provide the security controls that the CISO needs in order, for him or her to be satisfied that that they're safeguarding their employees and safeguarding their IP, which I think is top of mind for every CISO on the planet, pretty much.
Yeah, and it's top of mind for most IT teams as well, because they're being measured on that as well. So it's definitely got a lot of relevance. So I suppose to conclude, it really comes down to making sure you not only think about securing that desktop or securing that device, but it's securing access to applications that's important in this new era, isn't it? When we talk about innovation, the application is key in this journey, and if you don't secure access to that, like you said, any device you want access to that big application, whether it's managed or unmanaged, mobile or not, you need to be able to have some kind of really good access to that application. It's got to be secure. And the amount of different applications we've got out there, whether they're SaaS based or cloud native or whatever it might be, you're going to have to kind of support all of that different cocktail of applications. And that's I suppose this is what's gluing it all together, the bit in the middle, the Citrix cloud.
I do feel for customers. They've invested probably in an awful lot of point solutions over time, and sat in that data center providing that service. And so, it's tough to kind of break that cycle. Let's be real. SaaS and on-prem app delivery is challenging to do correctly. If you just think, there's the privacy concerns. You're logging into a VPN. There's an awful lot of things that you can't do. I can't access my personal email, as an example. So I log off and I access my personal email. God forbid I click on something I shouldn't have done. I then connect to the VPN, and lo and behold, I've just sent whatever nasty that was on my device into the corporate network. There's a lack of consistency. You know, I'm not saying that that we're trashing VPN. We're not. I mean, VPN is actually right for many customers, but does it really meet the needs of modern security standards when applications have moved, to the cloud, or they've got a SaaS variety? So, I mean, the challenges that I commonly see, and the question I guess I have for people who are watching is, think about how many web and SaaS applications have you got in use? Have you got the necessarily security controls around them? How many of your critical apps are SaaS versus on-prem? How are you providing access to them? I mean, obviously, there's always the question around, are you using Citrix Workspace? Because there will be an announcement very shortly that there will be an entitlement to this secure private access, which is what we've been talking about loosely here, and they're going to get the ability to start embracing that, and so that ideally a subsection of the business will get the opportunity to try this technology out. That technology is available for the entire business on a per user level. So, and for some of the customers that we did speak about that are potentially need to move away, would you like an alternative to Citrix Workspace for those users or for the business? And then there's the other areas that I already mentioned about BYO. How are you securing apps? Are you not embracing BYO because you're scared of the amount of security controls you would have to put in? And we haven't spoken much about the word zero trust. I find zero trust is very trend word, if you like. But has that come up on the agenda? What are you considering for that? What is the timeline? Who are you evaluating? And I bet Citrix may not be one of them. And the question I would ask is, well, why not? Especially if you already have Citrix in your business. I think it's something absolutely you should be considering. And you've got a pool of users who would be the ideal testbed for that. So that's where I see, when I get the opportunity to sit in front of customers, they're the kind of things that they're thinking about.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I think there's and there's a lot of points you've made there that it's not necessarily about a virtual desktop solution.
No.
It's not necessarily what is Citrix have got an interest in here. It's still about the user experiences, which is funny enough what Citrix have always been interested in, the user experience. But now recognizing, it might be a non VDI solution, but you're still going to need that secure access. How is that going to be achieved from unmanaged devices, or how are you going to achieve it to SaaS-based apps in a secure way? This is definitely something to consider. So really appreciate that, Justin. I mean, if there was anything you were going to add to that, to anyone who was looking to transform or shift to a new way of working, what would you suggest?
Well, first of all, I'd say you don't have to have had Citrix before. You literally could have zero Citrix in your business, never worked with Citrix before. Bottom line is do you have these security challenges? Are you looking to secure the remote access for all of your applications? Are you looking to supply a great employee experience without introducing those draconian levels of control? And what you're doing around managed and unmanaged and BYO devices? I said I sympathise greatly with customers, because I said this challenge is very real, when it's not a simple thing to fix.
Yeah, certainly, and that's something that we certainly see from our customers, that they've got a lot of tools in place that are fixing certain things, but there isn't. There's certainly a gap here, and that's perhaps something to consider going forward.
Absolutely.
Bytes are.
I was about to say, because I think from our perspective, also I think that there are very few partners that are actually able to drive this conversation with customers, and Bytes are well catered to deliver on this, not just with your EUC experience, but you've got a wealth of security experience within your business as well. And I think the two converging together kind of presents an ideal scenario for a customer that wants to engage in that conversation, and whereas where other partners may not be in that position yet.
Yeah, and I mean, we're really pleased to be able to say that Citrix have announced Bytes as their EMEA Partner of the Year for cloud solutions. So it's evidence that we've certainly been helping many of our customers deliver Citrix successfully in their environments, and now, whether it's managed desktop, virtual desktop, whatever the setup might be, we can help support with these solutions that we've discussed today, which is really exciting. So really do welcome. Thank you so much for your commentary there, Justin, and everything that you kind of been able to help us understand about Citrix in this new era and what they've been doing to innovate. That concludes our discussion for today. Please do take a look at our panel discussion that Justin will be part of, and we'll also cover some interesting viewpoints of all the experts involved in this innovation event. But we'd just like to thank Justin for your time, sharing your thoughts with us today, and from all of us here at Bytes, thanks for listening, and do take care.
Thanks, everyone.